Okay, you're watching Picture This. I'm Chelsea. This is Tony. And this episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest way to create a beautiful website, blog, or online store for you and your ideas. Squarespace features an elegant interface, beautiful templates, and incredible 24/7 customer support. Try Squarespace at squarespace.com, and you can use the coupon code PORTFOLIO and get 10% off.
Be sure to go to squarespace.com/Tony.
Yeah. And you know what else? They can get a 14-day free trial. You can try it before you buy.
Thanks, Squarespace. Today we're going over the best and worst gear of 2016, as well as some of the best photos of 2016.
Yeah.
And this is both our opinion and your opinion, because I put a poll out there. Several hundred people answered it. So you'll have the viewer votes and our own opinions on the best and worst gear. First, let's just look at some of the most powerful photos of the year. There's no way to pick a best one. We just couldn't manage it. But our team did put together what we thought were the most impactful photos
ones
of the
that
year.
we
the
remembered.
Ones that, yeah.
Yeah.
This was actually taken New Year's Eve on 2015.
This is how we started the year.
Yeah. Joel Goodman took what's been called the Manchester Renaissance photo. And it's this beautiful example of storytelling in photojournalism. And it's so New Year's Eve. You have two drunk people on the ground.
One is, he's posing beautifully with a beer at the end of his hand. And the other one is being arrested by the police while I think his girlfriend looks on yelling. There's a lot going on in this picture, and there's something amazing about it.
The guy on the ground, he's posing like the painting on the Sistine Chapel. You know, where God is laying out and reaching his hand out. That's what it looks like to me. He's in this kind of perfect pose. Anyway, somebody actually put together this golden ratio diagram, and everything just kind of falls in there perfectly. It's just a beautiful photo.
It's really funny.
The next photo we really liked is from David Lagerlof.
Oh, wow. You're going to have some angry people over that pronunciation.
Lagerlof?
But it's a woman named Tess. She's standing with her fist raised in opposition, protesting the Nordic resistance movement. So they're white supremacists, basically. And
but it's taken at eye level by a photojournalist, and you see a row of three white guys with white shirts and ties on, and they just have this very stern look. And on the right side of the frame, we have a woman of color holding her fist right up, just face to face with them, maybe just 2 feet in front of them.
Yeah. It's a powerful image.
Yeah, just a great image that tells a really important story. This was a photo that I really liked.
It was a video, right?
Yeah, made by Carlton Banksy that he posted to his Twitter. And it's a drone video flying around the pipeline protests at Standing Rock. And, the quality of it is terrible. But the story that it tells made a big difference. And in the drone video, you see the police spraying the protesters with water. And before that, nobody had ever heard of the Standing Rock protests. But this video changed all that. And suddenly it was national headlines.
Well, they had, but this was proof of the police brutality, because these are freezing temperatures and people were getting hypothermia. And they waited until it was really cold to spray people with water, trying to freeze them out.
Yeah, it definitely became much bigger news after this. And to me, it shows not just the power of independent photojournalism, because he didn't work for a newspaper. He was just a guy with a drone, but the power of the new media, as well as I think an aerial shot was the best way to capture this. So he just kind of had this orbit going on. So for me, it also speaks to the importance of drones. And shortly hereafter, the police got the FAA to put a ban on drone flights over the pipeline protests. And it definitely felt like them saying them impeding freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And they've since then loosened it up a little bit. But anyway, for me, that's why it was important. It was kind of this noteworthy moment in history. This photo taken by Zhang Li of Tianjin just shows the intense smog problems that China has in many of their big industrial cities. But I think what's noteworthy about it is that it's absolutely gorgeous. Like it's a stark photo. It's mostly negative space. You see the light of the rising sun illuminating some of their like cookie cutter buildings, and then above it just like seems like a mile of smog.
Yeah.
Just a powerful photo. Chelsea, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, National Geographic has some really great pictures. I pulled this one from their site, The Best Photos of 2016. And this is by Stephen Wilkes. He compiled over 1,000 pictures over 26 hours. And he's showing a picture that's transitioning from day to night. You can see the star trails in one corner of the sky, and then it looks like the sunrise in the next. It's really breathtaking. This one isn't as political, but it's really beautiful, so that's why I included it. And this one is of Yellowstone, and it's the Grand Prismatic Spring.
Yeah, it's also an aerial shot.
Yeah, it's an aerial shot.
It's pointed straight down, and
it's beautiful.
It's just
It's otherworldly.
Yeah, like a geological feature, but you have this powerful like half circle on the right with like deep greens and this kind of fog, steam rising out of it. Just an amazing shot. Also kind of showing the power of aerial photography. And
then I chose this one of Yi, a 16-year-old panda. He's in a conservation center in China. And it's a beautiful picture of this panda, but I love when pictures like this become popular because it connects people to wildlife when they otherwise wouldn't really get an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that is the importance of wildlife photography. It's not just annoying animals.
Into the gear.
Let's talk about the best and worst gear of 2016. Now, the first category, we're going to go over the best lens, the best cameras, the biggest disappointments, the biggest innovations of the year, the best smartphone cameras, best drones. First, I wanted to cover the best lens of 2016, but there was one lens that we absolutely loved and might have won the best lens of 2016, except nobody can actually get it. Yeah. And that was the Sony 7200 f2.8 G Master lens. We haven't even yet published the real video, but we reviewed it and it was stellar. It was mind-blowingly sharp. It did wonderfully. But it's still not shipping for some reason, despite the fact that it was announced like at the beginning of 2016. You still can't buy one. We managed to borrow one.
And for me, it wasn't just the lens. The lens was excellent, but it was also just a great addition to the Sony line.
Right. They really needed it, the E-mount. Okay. The best lens. Now this, you voted on this poll. Hundreds of people came and voted on it. And first, your selection for best lens was?
The Nikon 105 millimeter f1.4.
A portrait lens that we're waiting to get a copy of it, but it is absolutely stellar. It's incredibly sharp. It certainly overcomes a lot of the weaknesses of the Nikon 85 millimeter f1.4, which has like awful chromatic aberration in our experience. And it's small and fairly lightweight. It's still a hefty lens, but it's not as big as like the zooms out there. And if you're a portrait photographer and you shoot primes, there's nothing else like it. It's unique, and I think that's why it makes
really
it so
unique
compelling.
Results too. It's definitely a special lens. I can see why people chose that. Good choice.
I really like that focal length and aperture. Crazy background blur at it. In second place, you guys voted for the Nikon 7200 f2.8e, and then after that, the Sigma 50-100 f1.8. They were all pretty close, but the 105 edged out just barely.
We chose the Nikon 70-200 2.8, and first of all, it's a spectacular lens. It's incredibly sharp. It handles backlighting really well, which is something I like for portraits. But I also love the D810, but didn't have a lens that I love to go with it. So for me, it changed the way that I shoot. I've been using that for portraits more. That's why that was my favorite.
Yeah, the previous Nikon 7200 f2.8, the G, was it like the Mark II? They have complicated names, but it had been around like 7 or 8 years, and since the beginning, people were upset that it like had this serious focus breathing issue where it wasn't 200 millimeters when you were shooting headshots, which was a common thing for portrait photographers. It also this lens handles contrast just way better, like you said. So when you're often shooting into the sun with like the sun behind your subject, we just found it did much better. So yeah, enough for us to switch from Canon to Nikon. That's why it's important to us. Let's talk about the best.
Oh, you're saying we switched from Canon to Nikon. Okay.
Well, what did we pack up when we went to that workshop? It wasn't the Canon.
That's true.
The best drone of 2016.
Everyone chose the same drone.
Yeah, it was unanimously the DJI Mavic Pro, which is this tiny foldable drone. It's really the first kind of practical drone that you can carry with you and still get amazing images.
Very easy to just stuff in a backpack and take it with you wherever.
Yeah, and we took it to Thailand, and I pretty much had it with me all the time, whereas I never would have brought a Phantom 4 or like the big unique helicopters like the Typhoon. Too big, too clumsy, but the Mavic, I could get it set up in 30 seconds and be in the air. And really, my favorite images of Thailand came out of this $1,000 camera with kind of a cheap lens and 12 megapixels. So that's kind of remarkable considering I also had like an XE2 and a D810 with me. The Mavic, I think, is really revolutionary. I also want to point out, I think a lot of people might think drones are toys and don't belong in a list of the best camera gear, but increasingly drones are just floating cameras. That's just what they are. They're cameras that give you a different perspective.
Oh yeah, they're changing filmmaking especially. I see drone shots in every show now.
Yeah, but I think they should be on the radar of anybody who's shooting still imagery too, because you just can't fly out a mile over the water with your D810.
Yeah.
The Phantom 4 Pro came in second place. Also, even better for still images, just not as flexible.
Disappoint.
5 people will get that reference. Okay,
folks.
This is the biggest disappointment of 2016 in the camera community, and it was a tie.
It was a tie between the 5D Mark IV. Oh, I feel sad about that. And Digital Rev. Kai and Loke left.
Yeah. It was for the longest time the
hearts.
most popular YouTube channel for photography stuff, and yeah, the two main players just bailed and went to do their own thing.
They still have Kai and Loke.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing, but
maybe it's like
Digital
having
Rev is kind of gone.
Peanut butter and chocolate separately. It's just not as good.
And people waited 4 years for the 5D Mark IV. The 5D Mark II all the 5Ds had just been this huge revolution. And we had personally owned the 5D, every one of the 5D series as our main cameras. And we waited 4 years for the 5D Mark IV. So many people were like itching to leave Canon for Sony or Nikon, and they were just like, I'm just going to wait for the 5D Mark IV. It's going to change everything. And then it came, and just like there was nothing innovative about it. It was fine. It's like a jack of all trades.
I thought that it was kind of overblown how disappointing it was because people were basing it off of their expectations.
Right. Because it had all this pent up want.
But it's always just been a workhorse camera. Mm-hmm. Always. I didn't expect any huge innovations out of it. It's fine. It's a good camera. But it doesn't have a bunch of flashy new features.
No, but the original 5D and the 5D Mark II had kind of really changed the face of photography in their own ways. The 5D Mark III less so.
Yeah.
And the 5D Mark IV just didn't wow anybody. Those weren't what I thought was the biggest disappointment, though. I had to go with the Karma.
That was a sad one. I'll agree that was way worse than the Mark IV. This actually just sunk a company. People lost jobs.
Yeah, GoPro is basically the only American camera company, the only U.S. camera company. They came up a few years back making action cameras that were a huge hit, and they got big fast, and everybody had a GoPro. We have, I think, 4 or 5 GoPros.
Wow.
We'll use them regularly in our filming. But as smartphones became more and more popular and Chinese companies started making like knockoff action cameras, people were buying fewer and fewer GoPros, and their stock sank, and they were laying people off. And they kind of put all their eggs into the drone world, knowing that drones were becoming more and more popular for photography.
It was a smart move.
It was the right move for them, but the Karma didn't work at all. And literally like 3 days after they announced the Karma, DJI announced the Mavic, which just won the best drone for us. And it was better in basically every way.
Must have been devastating.
But then the Karma started just falling out of the sky. potentially injuring or killing people. And so GoPro had to recall them. But keep in mind, this, in my opinion, was GoPro's last hope.
Yeah.
So they can continue to make action cameras, but they're going to have to scale their business.
But I also think
back.
that they lowered the production of their other products because they had put all of their energy into the Karma for the holiday season.
Right.
Because companies usually do most of their business in the last few months of the year. And so they amped up production of the Karma, kind of put the other stuff on the back burner, and then the Karma just didn't work out at all. And now, what was it, the Hero 5 or something, the new GoPro?
Yeah,
they didn't
Hero
have
5
enough.
Black.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's under stock too.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so they took the Karma off the shelves, and they're not even replacing them or repairing them. They're just taking them back, and that's it. Rough.
That is really rough. The biggest innovation.
A little bit brighter news. We went to Photokina looking for all the big, exciting innovations that are always there every other year.
Yeah.
And we didn't even end up making a video about it because there was we just couldn't find anything exciting. But there were a few things that came out this year that I thought were noteworthy to the photography community. You thought the biggest thing was the Microsoft Surface Studio.
I'm not excited about that.
I was not excited about that either. But it's this computer that allows you to, it's like an all-in-one computer with the monitor and the computer are built in. And you can kind of rotate it to switch between like standing or sitting. You can use a pen with it. And so it works like a stylus. And it also had this kind of innovative mechanical dial that you can put on the screen to change colors and palettes. And they had great marketing material around it that I think got people really pumped.
I saw, yeah.
And not to be a geek, but the specs on it just lacked. And I mean, Lightroom is so slow that there's no way I'm going to go with like a lower end computer. Can you imagine if Lightroom...
Less processing power for Photoshop?
Just so you can tilt your screen like this and use some doodad that... No.
Doesn't Wacom also have something almost similar where you just draw directly on the tablet?
Yeah, it's not as slick. Like the studio is slick. Anyway, congrats on Microsoft on making something that people are pumped about, but it wasn't it for me. I was more excited about the portrait mode in iPhone 7 Plus. Again, not like traditional Canon, Nikon, big DSLR photography, but the smartphones have quickly become the most popular cameras for consumers.
I know. Whenever we talk about this, it freaks people out. It's making photography pretty easy.
Yeah, and now, like one of the few things you had to upgrade to a full camera for was getting a decent portrait because you just couldn't get that background blur. Mm-hmm. And smartphones were always at like 28 millimeters, like super wide angle. And now it's at 50 millimeters. Now it will blur the background with software, but it looks perfect. And I'm using it constantly. I switched from Samsung over to iPhone just to get this camera, and it's been so useful in just day-to-day casual photography and social networking. Yeah. I love hitting that little 2x button and zooming in on the dual lens.
Yeah, because we bring our cameras a lot of places, but if we go out to dinner or something, we don't bring them. And sometimes we still want to capture a moment. So it's nice to have a better casual camera.
Yeah, and social networking is important to us. Mm-hmm. We like to share what we're doing with family and friends and followers. And it's a pain on any camera except your smartphone. Okay.
Best smartphone camera.
Closely related here.
I know what you're going to say, Tony.
Well, everybody said this.
We
had the Google Pixel on there, which came in second place. The Google Pixel actually has huge software-based innovations in its camera. Like it doesn't have built-in image stabilization. Instead, it uses like software tricks where it takes a bunch of pictures and then figures out which one is sharpest. So it kind of gets around needing image stabilization. It can also do lots of like stacking stuff. And so I was really interested in the Google Pixel camera, but everybody seemed to agree. It was the iPhone 7. We also had the Moto Z that has that snap-on camera. What is it, like the snap-on Hasselblad back? Yeah. Which is a really cool idea. And we had the Huawei, I think it's the P9 that has the like Leica branded lens camera in it. But anyway, the iPhone took it. Let's talk about the best sponsor. Who could this be?
I did not see that you put the slide in here. Gonna have to go with Squarespace. Squarespace actually is a great way to get a portfolio. Tony and I have them. You can check ours out at mine's chelseanorthrop.com. Yours is
northropphotography.com.
And even if you don't plan on buying one, you can get one for 14 days. It's a good way to go through your pictures make a portfolio, see your best shots, organize them, see what you have to work on, see what your strong points are and your weaknesses are. It's also just a great way to display your photos so that they're not constantly going through a feed. If you have Instagram or something, that's cool. You can put your best picture in a couple of weeks, it's at the bottom of your feed. A portfolio is still a great way to get people to go see your pictures, have a nice, clean, beautiful template like on Squarespace, and always have your best photos there for people to see.
You don't take our word for it. Just go try it out.
Go try
It's free for 14 days. Go to squarespace.com/Tony. And then if you decide to sign up, use the coupon code portfolio for an additional 10% off. It's super cheap, basically.
Easy.
I started setting up a new Squarespace website today.
You did? Why?
It's a secret. But you'll see.
Is it
You
for
can make them
Sandy?
for anything, like if you run a dentist office or
Is
something.
it for Sandy?
Not for Sandy. Thank you, Squarespace. Let's get to the best camera of the year.
But first we're going to start with the best unshipped camera.
Yeah, you know why? Because if we just pick the best camera, people would be picking like they want it to be the GH5 or the Fuji GFX or the big Hasselblad X1D.
Yeah.
But those cameras, nobody actually has those things. But people just get so pumped
excited.
when they see like ads and people talking about stuff.
Yeah.
So this is the best of the cameras that don't exist. This was one of the biggest disappointments of 2016 too, was that
Your favorite cameras aren't actually out yet.
I know none of them actually exist. All the Photokina announcements weren't real. We're still kind of waiting for them. Anyway, it was a really close call, but you guys voted for the Fuji GFX, and it was my favorite unreleased camera too. It was followed closely by the Panasonic GH5, which is promised to offer 4K at 60 frames a second. If they're still saying like early 2016, they don't even have reviewer cameras out there. The Hasselblad X1D, another big medium format camera. People are pumped about medium format cameras.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised by that, since like they're so expensive that almost nobody buys them, but people get excited about them.
Yeah, I'm surprised by it as well, just because I don't know a lot of photographers, even professionals, that are printing huge pictures or showing them on a large display.
But I like the idea of the GFX because it has like interchangeable viewfinders. It's more of like an old-fashioned system camera.
Yeah.
So I'm actually pretty jazzed to see that if they ever get it actually shipping. So let's talk about the best camera of the year, the big finale. You guys voted for the Nikon D500.
I also voted for that. Tony and I were divided on this one.
I love the D500. It was a really tough choice.
Oh, but then the XT2. I also love the XT2.
Yeah, the XT2 came in second place. I mean, to me, the D500 was huge from Nikon. It just beat the Canon 7D Mark II in every way. And the 7D Mark II from Canon had just been the sports and wildlife camera to have since it was released, because it was fast, it was APS-C, so it gave you that extra reach, and Nikon just didn't have something comparable. So the D500 changed all that. The D500 also introduced SnapBridge, which I think is one of the biggest innovations of the year. SnapBridge will wirelessly transmit pictures you take to your smartphone, so they're immediately ready to share. Still, it had some major weaknesses
And
in their first
autofocusing
implementation.
points all the way to the edges, which
Right
is
to the
excellent.
edges of the frame, yeah.
And the autofocusing system was amazing.
Absolutely stunning. That 3D tracking for sports and stuff, we just found it just couldn't be beat. Not even by the 1DX
It's an amazing
Mark II.
camera. But, I mean, if I'm shooting with the Nikon D500, I'm doing something completely different than if I'm shooting with the XT2. So I'm actually going to have to say it's a tie for me.
Yeah, I know we're
love the
lucky
XT2.
in that we pick
Spoiled.
different cameras for different
Spoiled.
tasks.
Yeah.
And we'll pick the D500 for sports and wildlife. That's still what I pick up. But yeah, the XT2 for travel. Whenever
Around
we travel,
town,
we're
street
fighting over it.
photography. Yeah,
We only have the one, but we both want to be using the
Oh,
XT2.
poor us. We only have one.
Oh, and those awesome controls, like
Yes,
the
it's
dial
so
on the
cool, yeah.
lens to change the
It's
aperture.
fun to use.
The fact that you don't have to look at a 1980s LCD when you want to change your shutter speed. You have a tactile dial. I love the XT2. It's such a fun camera.
It really is. You chose the Pentax K1.
Right.
You love a lot of things about this. It's got a self-leveling sensor.
Oh, I love that.
Those
And it has
level
that-
horizons are everything to you.
It is. Well, you know what? You even if you're using a tripod, you never like nail the level, I find. And that means you have to crop it down a little bit, which means you're giving up some megapixels. So just the fact that I never had to re-level stuff, that meant so much. But it also had this sensor shift that gave me sharper and cleaner images than any other camera could produce, including like the D810, the A7R2, the 5DSR. They just looked better out of
This
that
is
Pentax.
definitely a cool camera. I think the reason I didn't choose this one is because I would have to switch systems completely and acquire
that's the hard part.
bunch of lenses and stuff, and I couldn't commit to that even in theory. But this would be great for someone just going into it and acquiring their first gear.
For somebody doing landscapes. It had a ton of innovations in it that nobody else really came forward with. It's not a good all-around camera. Like the autofocus system was just kind of lacking, but for landscapes, tilting screen too, so useful.
You
for
love
landscapes.
that tilting screen. Me too.
Yeah,
Me
when
too.
you got to get close to the ground, you're trying to put
It's
your eye
one of
against the
those
viewfinder.
features that sound silly. I remember when we first started talking about it, we got a lot of crap in the comments. But once you're actually holding your camera down to the ground or over your head, especially for me being a shorter person, sometimes I have to get shots like that. Mm-hmm. It's really nice.
Congrats, Nikon, Fuji, Pentax. You guys brought great cameras out this year.
2016 was a rough year.
Yeah.
So that's it. If you want to share some of your disappointments or your favorite things about 2016 related to the camera world, you can comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to do all of that. Tony?
Happy 2016. Thank you, Squarespace, our sponsor. Go to squarespace.com/Tony. Use the coupon code portfolio to get an awesome looking website for pictures or whatever. Bye, guys.
Bye. 2016.